Honey, I think Jerry Jones out here working overtime to try to prove that he liked the blacks. Now they caught him sitting in that protest picture with them kids trying to get into school back in the 50s. Honey, let's talk about the new episode of Ready to Love Dallas, season 9. Hey, question crew, what's up? And we are back for season 9 of Ready to Love, the regular one, Dallas. And as you know, we have been repeating cities the last couple of years, but this is Fort Worth. So it's very much like when DC did DC and then they did the DMV. I don't know where the line splits once you leave DFW, honey. I just know they're all in the same area. So uh Ready to Love is focused on the Fort Worth side, I guess, of Dallas. Somebody in Texas let us know in the comments so we know what's going on. Anyway, I just want to say, this new cast very much gave me, really, this episode gave me mid-range real estate agent team. Y'all let me know everything about this episode gave Caldwell Banker Fort Worth division. So let's meet your agents. So first up on the Ready to Love Realtors team, honey, we got Miss April. She is 42. She is a pharmacist. We have Alexis, who is 32, and she, I believe, is like a sales agent or something like that, a national sales agent. We got Will, who is 31, dressed like a complete jackass, and he is a real estate development CEO / I'm not really sure he has a job. We have DeMonte below April, who is a celebrity stylist. Well, he said stylist at first, and celebrity stylist, photographer / fashion designer / whatever, honey. We got LaRon, who is a systems operator, and he is 32. And we got Miss Mika, who is 37, and she is an esthetician. Next up on the realty team, we got Coach Shay. She was 36, and she's an actual realtor. Charles is 36, and he, I believe, is an art gallery owner, but I think he's also an accountant, honey, so he's dual-hatted. We got Will, who's 38. He has all them hips, and he is also a comedian and a National Guard reservist, I believe. We got Allen, who is 42, and she owns a cybersecurity firm, and I think she also has like an event venue in Fort Worth. And then Rashana is 39. She has a hair salon, and Jonathan is a recycle center owner. Okay, so last on the realty team, hey, to sell you a house, honey, is Mr. Alonso. He is 36, and I believe he's an insurance adjuster. Miss Maya, honey, she is a healthcare consultant, and she's 31. And Lamar is 36, and he is a coach. We got Miss Patrice, who is a tech recruiter, and she is 36 as well. We have Mr. Chaz, he is 47, and he is like a business data analyst. And last but certainly not least, we have Miss Vanessa, and she is a flight attendant. We got a lot of these same jobs that we've had like in a lot of these seasons, but this is your realty team. Now let's get on to what this house is about. Child, so Tommy Miles is back loud and bound as ever. And he starts off by yelling at us on the football field at Forest Center at Dallas Cowboys Stadium, honey. What is going on right now? I guess we're in Fort Worth. I guess we're in Texas. I don't know which one it's going to be. But Tommy is saying we back at it again, as he says every season. Back at the foolishness, Tommy. Is that what you're talking about? Showing us how bleak the dating scene is? Is that what you're discussing? He says that we're back and we got 10 singles for you now. And 2 mixers. And PJ Morton is back with the Ready to Love theme song, and don't it look good? Tommy's letting us know that these people are dedicated to finding their person in the great state of Texas, and we here along for the ride. So one of the first people to appear on the episode is our girl, April. April is one of the older ladies on the show. She's 41, and she's a pharmacist. And we love April at first sight. I mean, I had some questions about that TV 130 and that deep part. With the sewing, but we try. I don't know that we should try as tough when we have the Rihanna forehead, but it is what it is, honey. Anyway, Miss April shows up and she's looking fab in feathers. It's a dress. And she rolls up in a car and she stops to pick up a glass of champagne that is at the driveway as she walks across to the house that is on the showing. And she's waiting for the other people to show up as a first arrival. And then Miss April says that she is looking for somebody who she can share her life with. She ultimately wants to find somebody that she finds attractive, who has good dental hygiene, honey, is fun, and who she can just live, laugh, love with. So it's not too long after that we realized that people are going to just start showing up and stopping at this table. And we got to talk about this tablescape, honey. Everything was giving Dollar Tree setup. It was giving random craft services vibes. Who is responsible for the location scouting for Ready to Love? Period. We have questions. It's crazy though because last season Dallas looked great. So it's weird to me. They had amazing dates at great places all over Dallas, and now it's giving Dollar General. This weird, random wooden table with this IKEA furniture, weird setup with these random glasses of champagne. Honey, everybody got to stop the car in the same place. I don't know. Was it throwing y'all off because it was throwing me off? So LaRon is next up at the open house, honey. He picks up his bottle of champagne once he figures out what's going on. And let's be honest, he really wish it was a cup of Hennessy. As he makes his way across the bridge, LaRon is 31. He's giving former frat party drunk. It very much gives I'm just mad I'm not with my brothers. His energy is one step out of the club for me. So I already am not feeling him. And it seems like he's going to be up to a bit of nonsense. So next up, we got Mika. She's 36 and she's an esthetician. And Mika has 2 kids, y'all. Mika is rolling up to the open house as well. Because all the realtors got to get in one spot for the clients show up. And she is asking LaRon what he's drinking. And he's like, I got champagne right now. But I think he said he wish it was some Hennessy. And we can already tell that, again, he's the party drunk. It's giving club vibes. I think he said he was looking for tequila. And already Mika's kind of feeling like, that went from good to bad really quickly because it's like, what vibe are you on? This is your first time meeting a brand new set of women and you're saying your hair is ready to love and be serious. Why are you trying to be inebriated at this, sir? Like I tell y'all, it's giving F-boy energy. It's giving very much, I could be here or I could be with my frat brothers. And he says, Wednesday through Sunday, he's turning up. And I'm wondering why or where did they find him? Now, just when we think LaRon represents slim pickings and also the level of desperation in which they have a hard time recruiting people for the show at this point, Demonte starts walking down the bridge, honey. And I have to say, I was excited to see what his occupation was because honestly, I don't think Black male fashion stylists, designers, people that work in the fashion space get enough shine. And so I actually love that they had somebody from a different occupation versus the standards that we always see. And I was excited to see Del Monte walk across the bridge. Even though he had that blue white suit on, that's not a fave for me. I'm gonna tell you right now though, once he sell that, he gonna make somebody uncle in West Killacucci, Mississippi happy on Easter Sunday. Do you hear me? He was looking sharp. He was looking very, very sharp. Canned fruit aside, I have to say that this was the least impressive outfit he could have wore for this initial meetup. I did not care for the inverted colors. I wasn't here for the sneakers. It was giving early failure Kanye West vibes. I just didn't care for it. And Mika said he was dressed like the Nutcracker. Now, again, we continue this walk to Selma Bridge entrance that I did not understand. Again, who is doing the location sharing? Why do we have all these Black people stopping to get a drink and then walking across this bridge to the house? It was giving civil rights vibes. I did not understand where we were headed in this, but we have some additional people that walk in. Dominique comes in, Alexis comes in, Will comes in, completely like a jackass. He's in this very relaxed, early grandpa on the top out with church shoes on the bottom. I did not understand what the vibe of his outfit was. And he's also 31 years old. Good sir, the birthday shout out was not necessary because he starts off his entry point when they go to talk to him about being there as yo. And I'm like, sir, this is not a birthday shout out on Cameo. Okay, you're supposed to be telling us about yourself, not introducing us on the radio. He says a woman would want to date him. He is a status man, not in that striped shirt, but basically he's a status man, that he has his stuff together. He has his mind together. And he shows us that by emphasizing his 2 fingers against his skull, just in case you didn't know what the mind was, what the brain is. He lets us know outside of his cerebellum, he needs these women to recognize that, he is the man. He is him. And at this point, we realize that the pickings are super slim and somebody from the production needs to be fired. And so Will is our last person to walk in Bachelor Wise. And we recognize right away, Will has a very deep voice, no facial hair, and some birthing hips, honey. He got some hips on him. But he actually seems pretty cool. He is pretty reserved, and he is a comic. He's also in the reserves, and he's also the third man to be wearing sneakers. The rest of the cast sort of head in and have a seat. They head over to the realtor's table, honey. The open house spread very much gave Costco. And Alexis, who had the curly hair, they start to talk to her about what her ideal guy is, because they start running through everybody's story and situation to see what they would like. Alexis says that she's looking for somebody that just has clean hygiene, honey. It's gotten that bad out here. She just really wants somebody who clean under their fingernails and brush their teeth. She said she's not even asking for too much. And it just breaks my heart that this is not considered to be the standard anymore, but something that you have to put at request. Good God, where are we? And so we meet Dominique, and Dominique is one that is turning the eye of a lot of the ladies. To me, he's not that visually appealing. He's not unattractive, but he's just not, But he is very mellow, chill. He's 36. He's an accountant. He has no kids. He said his grandfather had 30, though. And he wouldn't mind having between 2 and 10. And when he sits down to talk with um, April, who is 41 and doesn't have any kids, that is something that kind of throws her off a little bit. This man wants a tribe, honey. And he's letting her know, like, look, I'll be happy with whatever. And she's like, okay, like, that sounds good. He said, but I would prefer him on the larger side. And I'm saying to myself, these men out here that be wanting these tribes, honey, when they can only support a duo. I could not do it, sir. Slow your libido down. So April lets him know, like, she's like, the ancestors are telling me between me and you, you're not getting 10. That was hilarious, because I feel like, yes, I like nice vacations in my uterus. I'm not doing the Jackson 5. I don't know. Y'all let me know that in your comments. Are y'all open? Do y'all think if you should be open to no matter the amount of kids your man wants to have, if you are childless and y'all get together? I'm saying that at some point we need to figure out and wrap it up, because I'm not finna do at 41 2, 3, 4 kids. I mean, maybe 2 and a dog. So Tommy, of course, walks in and says, welcome, singles, in his regular old voice, and he gets the party started at the poolside while they're all standing and having conversation. They've had a little bit of fruit and a little bit of chat, and he's letting them know why they're here today. He's letting them know that this is one of 2 mixers. So we have not, in fact, met all of the crew. I mean, I introduced them up front before we started this episode discussion, but they're not on screen yet. So we've only met like the first 10 people or so. We're going to meet the others next week to finish out and round out the cast. He also is trying to account for everybody, and he's wondering where one of the castmates is named Glenn. He asked anybody, do they know Glenn? Have they seen Glenn? And everybody says, oh, no, we don't know Glenn. We have no idea where he is. Now, before we get into Glenn, let's get into some of these outfits real quick in the mixer. I'm always fascinated by what people wear for the very first time if they meet someone. And I was a little disappointed on one side more than the other. So as we talked earlier, the guy in the pink and the gray, that is Mr. William, honey. He is the one that is a comic and also has them hips. His outfit actually wasn't bad to me, except I feel like the sneakers just threw it off. If he had not worn the sneakers, it still would have given IT help desk, but it still would have been a little bit more pulled together, and I would have preferred that. I love Miss April's heels. Again, I know how I feel about that TB 130 and the deep part weave wave, but either way, it's working. I thought her neck was going to kill her because she kept having to swing that hair to the other side. I feel like whenever you do Ready to Love, especially because the mixer lasts for a really long time, and we've heard that with the other cast members, I think you have to pick the smartest hairstyle for you, the easiest thing for you. And I think you also just have to pick a really good dress, because depending on how it shows up on camera, it depends. Like for me, I like the feather concept, but it also looks a little dated to me. It's giving used air swab. I couldn't tell completely if I love the feathers the whole time. So I think sometimes you just got to go with a safe choice in terms of your visual and how you're going to appear on camera, and make sure it's not a hairstyle that's going to bug you the whole time. Next is Mr. DeMonte, honey. And he knew he was going to be turned out. This is his own creation, or perhaps, I don't know, he had a chain pocket. I didn't know what was going on with this outfit, to be honest, y'all. I wanted to believe in him because I knew he's from the creative side of things, but it just really gave bad Southern pasta. And then he added them sneakers on top, and he's a thicker guy, so the pants being stuck into the sneakers, it was weird. But he's well groomed up top. And next we have Roshia. Roshia looked great. I love the purple dress. I hated the heels, but I understand them, right? She's in these platforms because even though we're not in the early 2000s anymore, because the outfit was giving full up in the club in 2008, 2010. But I understood the platforms because they're probably comfortable. But then she took off the shoes midway throughout the show, and I was like, are they really that comfortable, girl? The hairstyle, everything about this look, when you kind of look at it, it gives early 2018, early 2008, hanging out with your girlfriends at the club. And but it fits her well, and I like purple, it's one of my favorite colors. Next up was Will, again bothering his daddy's sweater and them church shoes. And I think his general all personality is what made this outfit even worse because he's dressed a little too casual for me. It gives backyard barbecue. Now, the left side of things, well, Tommy's right side, that's where I felt like we really started to see a little bit better of the grown and sexy. And of course, this is just the first mixer. So we got some more folks coming up next week. But I really thought LaRon dressed very well for the occasion. He had on a decent soft shoe. His outfit fit. He had a really good shirt on, a nice little color application. It fit well. He looked comfortable. It looked breathable. I can appreciate this. I thought Mika looked beautiful. She had a very simplistic dress. She kind of let her body play up a lot of her like her aesthetic, and I think that was really smart. She went with a very clean look. Earrings, braids are amazing, especially when I think about the fact that so many times on Ready to Love, when they've been in hotter climates where most Black folks really be living though, for real. Um, a lot of times, you're sweating at the mixer, it gets hot, and having braids and having your hair pulled back really helps to like not end up having a situation where you're halfway through and you got to pull your hair back like that girl had to do in one of the previous seasons, or you're not sweating like you need a church fan. So I appreciated her look. It was very cute, and the men were not unhappy with it. And, next up we got Dominique. Again, a nice light suit. It looked like it was linen, so it was breathable, good shoes, good shirt. And a lot of these men are a little bit on the thicker side, I've noticed too. Quite a few of the men, pretty much this whole entire first group, besides Will 1.0, that's Junior. Were pretty much men who are a bit of the thicker size body. And I think that some men really knew how to dress themselves well. And I think Dominique was one of them. And then lastly, we have Miss Alexis. And even though I think I'm going to like her personality this season because she seems like she's going to be a bit of a mess, and I love to see it, I hated the Barbie look. It's giving Fort Worth Barbie. I did not like this at all. I hated the whole full pink with the back out, with the big pink platform shoes with the clear hoop earrings that were pink. It gave young energy. And I think she's in her mid 30s. And I thought it was interesting that she commented on somebody's sneakers because she was dressed like Skipper. Now, y'all, let's get into the mystery of Glenn because this is the big question mark, right? Where is Glenn? So, as we stated before, Tommy gathered everybody by the pool, let them know that it's going to be a whole different scenario this season, and that by the end of this mixer, somebody is going to be going home. But he can't find Glenn, so do we even need an elimination? I don't know. I kind of thought that we wouldn't have one because Glenn wasn't here. And what we find out is Glenn was one of the contestants that was supposed to show up, and he did in fact get interviewed by them, but you could tell he already is having a little anxiety being interviewed. I really wouldn't be surprised if this was not Glenn's idea to come on the show, simply because a lot of people in the previous seasons have said that, hey, they were convinced by a friend or a family member they should try to do this just to shake it up as far as their personal life. It couldn't hurt. But Glenn is a 41-year-old adult who's a teacher and probably was thinking about this saying, I don't think I want to do this. Even when they're having discussions, you could tell he's nervous in the back. And when they're just doing the initial preliminary interviews to ask them about themselves, he's like, am I saying it right? If I'm not right, it doesn't give that I'm comfortable on camera. Nice looking guy, and probably would have been a good addition to round out the visual. Very simplistic, clear job. He's a teacher. And it's uncomfortable to see it happen. But it also gets weird because Glenn actually does show up to the open house, but he gets to that little IKEA table and they ask him, he get out the car and he goes, I don't think so. So one of my favorite parts about the open house is the way in which they got Tommy acting like a broker for real. So he walks outside to take a call from the group trying to find out where Glenn is. And it was very much like somebody who was supposed to be at the realty on the first day and got fired. So he's like, okay, you went through all the training, you're here, you're going to be a sales agent for the day, and you decide that you're just not going to show up. So Tommy goes to the car and calls Glenn on a cell phone and says, hey, Glenn, this is Tommy from Ready to Love. Why aren't you here? We've been looking for you, brother. Are you showing up? Because by you not showing up, that tells me you're not ready to love. Give me a call back. I think he does this twice in the episode, but it was just so hilarious for them to actually have Tommy take a call just to see where Glenn was. Honey, Glenn did hightail that he did ask that Uber to drive back around and take him home. He's not fit to be embarrassed on national TV or in front of his students with these people on this TV show. Let's be honest. We still watch Ready to Love for a little bit of the romance, but it's mostly for the jackassery. And I can't imagine that Glenn took one look at that table and said, "This is not for me. I'm on my way." And I cannot blame him. So now we're back to talking to the ladies, and everybody's getting to know each other. They know somebody's going to be going home, so they know they got to make their rounds and try to make a connection. And, we start off with DeMonte, and, he's talking to ladies about his job as a stylist. And, he says he's a celebrity stylist. I don't even know if anybody asked him that, but I think they did. And, the status of celebrity is really questionable. Have you, dress people in the Dallas area, the Fort Worth area? What do we consider celebrity? Is it a national situation? Is it just somebody local that own a club? So he starts talking about how he's done like 7 fashion shows, and it's a unique job. And some of the ladies are feeling the conversation, and some of them feel like he's been doing too much of the talking. He also mentions that he has about 30 tattoos, and he's talking to Roshia when he's having this conversation. So she says, "Oh, okay, well, look, tell me about the one in your hand." And he says, "I have so many." Sir, she asked the story about one of them, and you can't even do that. It's giving that, he's more inflated in his own energy, and he's not really giving a chance to ladies to really speak and get to know him. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, honey, Tommy's still hitting Glimp on the cell phone. Fast forward to Dominique, and he has now walked with Koshia back to that bridge. I don't know. Black people bridges, I'm like, we have had enough of the crossing, honey. We are done is with the ancestors, but they insisting on having this bridge be a thing. And he is pressing ladies about their eggs. He is trying to get somebody fertilized as soon as possible so he can create his kingdom. And so him and Koshia are having a conversation because Koshia is one of the women there that has children. I believe she has 2 kids, and but she's 35 already. So she's like, I'm interested in having another child possibly, but I'm not sure, it would have to be with the right person because I already have 2 kids. And so he's sort of saying, would you be open to that? She's saying, yes, this is something that, I guess be into if I found the right person. She's divorced, and she's actually a realtor. And they seem to be having a good conversation. You can tell that she's really getting in to know Dominique, and you can tell that he's one of the mature men in the bunch. And that's really, that's really saying a lot, I guess, I suppose. Fast forward, we have Alexis and William meet and have a conversation, and that is a little bit different than what we've been talking about with Koshia and Roche. A lot of the maturity goes right out the window. Now, I'll just say this. The crazy part about it is that Will is, I think, 31 and Alexis is 32. So you're thinking, okay, they may have more in common, but it is clear that the maturity level is lacking with Will. It gives, I just got out of college and he's 31. His energy just gives way too young for this show, and he's clearly going to be there just for the nonsense of it all and to have somebody that's going to act out, because I still don't understand why he would even be remaining in the selection process to begin with, but it is what it is. So Alexis sits down with Will, and they are talking about marriage. She asks him if he's ready for marriage, and Will says that he is ready for marriage, and he starts quoting several different lines. He just sounds like a live meme. He's just quoting a bunch of lines that we hear online. Stand on business. You know, period. Like whatever it is you could say. He's like, Netflix and chill. It's like very much not real sentences. They do get into a real moment, however, when Alexis informs him that she has an autoimmune disease and that she's had it for a really long time. And so she's very careful about her diet and lifestyle, and whoever she ends up being with has to be aware of that. I think she has HSV, which, don't give me a line on pronunciation. I want to say it's like hydrocytobius tiva or something like that. Basically, it's a condition where your sweat glands affect your body to the point that they can sometimes cause boils or breakouts and things like that continuously, and you kind of have an irregularity within your immune system. And you can Google it or look it up on YouTube. But as a result, she's actually had her sweat glands removed over time to avoid some of the irritations that can come with that, and some of like the hardness of sort of having it, because you can get boils a lot of places, and like on your thighs and certain areas on your underarms, things like that. They can be extremely painful. And so she said that because of that, she has to regulate her lifestyle and how she lives, how she eats, all of that other stuff. So he actually appreciates her for sharing it, and he respects what she said. That part was very shocking coming from him, because he just told her about Netflix and booty rubs if they end up having kids together. So it was just an interesting conversation on the one hand, but the other part of it made me feel like somebody come get me and take me home in this Uber. I know Alexis was looking there like I could have been watching the second half of Law and Order premiere had y'all not shown me on this date with this ridiculous man. And so Tommy is still on the other side of the house, still trying to not understand the ghosting of Glenn. And he eventually gets tired of trying to contact Glenn and Glenn leaving him on read. And he basically says, Glenn, you are not ready to love. Glenn knew that 45 minutes ago and never showed up past that table. But, they got to let Tommy show like he's, eliminating people when Glenn eliminated himself a while ago. We focus now back on the house where people are still in tow and having conversation. And we get to Roshia and LaRon sitting by one of the pool, but sitting by one of the smaller hot tubs. And it is clear that Roshia's shoes is her, honey, because she done took them off, walking in them heels, and she decided she's going to dip her feet in the pool. And she's chit-chatting with LaRon and just asking him different questions about the process or why he became attracted to this. And specifically, how did he land in the Fort Worth, Dallas area? And LaRon says he got here because it was during COVID and he liked that Texas didn't have any state tax and he's looking for a wife. Now, I'm going to say this about LaRon. He gives frat boy energy. I don't love the energy that he's giving about why he wants a wife, because he said earlier in the episode that the reason that he was looking for a wife was because he needs to slow down, and he wants to slow down, and he needs a reason to do that. And what made me disturbed by that, and men who watch this, who are part of our question crew and who are on this channel who watch this review, please let us know. What I did not love about that is that normally men that I know who have gotten married and who gotten serious about their life, they slow down on their own. They weren't looking for the wife to slow them down. Their lifestyle was progressively not being one where they were in the club or they were, out on the scene all the time and they were already chill. And now they're like, look, I want to have somebody to complement the other part of my life with where I am right now. They're not looking for the wife to slow them down, because if that's the reason, y'all going to end up in divorce court anyway, because you're not going to really be away from that lifestyle. And then you're going to get thrown into this lifestyle where you have to really chill and you're not going to be ready for it. To me, I would think that would be something that would be more self-regulated before you get married, and that you would slow down a little bit. And then the other parts would sort of ease you into that process. So either way, Koshia seems to be excited about it. She's smitten with the drunk frat boy, and that's the crack in the armor for me with her, and already the red flag. Ma'am, you completely unserious in that fashion based on the conversation that they had. She made it seem like it was deep, and that disturbed me and made me wonder, why is she really single? She then says that, she's happy that he moved to Dallas because they know how to bake a pie down there. And, he did the whole, I want a Southern girl energy. And she seems to find him funny. But she also says that she thinks he's very guarded. And mama, he's a day drunk. Okay. That's all we learned in this moment. The way she tried to make this man seem deep, I will never understand. So we finally stop jumping around from conversation to conversation and we start playing real life games. I feel like you're already playing a game with your life when you end up on this show, but either way, they have introduced it in a very Jeopardy Parker Brothers type of way. And because Glenn never showed up, there are only 9 left. And they go into the house to play a game with Tommy called Hot and Bothered. And the winner will be safe from elimination. And Hot and Bothered really was perfect because that is exactly what it seems like the cast is at this moment. You know what I'm saying? They be eating all of this free fruit outside. Ain't nobody showed up to be shown this house. And so the realtors are tired, honey. And so they're sitting down having this conversation with Tommy about how this Hot and Bothered game is going to go. Essentially, he's going to give them what looks to me like the bottom of a Crown Royal bag with the mitten slashed in and their names on it, specifically the men. And they're going to answer questions about the 4 women that they've been talking to the entire time. He wants to know how well they know these women based on the conversations. Can you and do you really listen? So essentially, Tommy's going to ask a question, and then the men will will put up the earmuffs and say whether or not who this person is. And I have to say, this game was really cute to me, and it was something different to break up the monotony of what we're very much used to. And probably because there were less people, how many scenes can we show of them going back to get pineapple stuck to a strawberry eaten at the table, or LaRon having another glass of champagne? So I appreciate that they broke it up a little bit with this fun game. And it was interesting to see who was really listening to the women as they were going around the table. For the most part, the questions were very cute. It was like, okay, this person is, a basketball coach on the weekends and whatever, whatever. And then each man had to put up their answer. And as it went on, it was very clear that LaRon and Dominique were the two that really honed in on what the ladies had to say the most. So they were the last two standing of the men as we got towards the end of the game. Now I'm gonna say this. That question that they asked, well, rather the scenario that Tommy presented about the worst date. So in the episode, Tommy asked which woman had this particular date. He said that there was a woman that got flown out by an athlete and she got flown out to, I guess, hang out with him, be with him, whatever. But either way, he left her in the car while he went to go get a facial. When I tell you, I would never have shared that information with anybody. The embarrassments. Why the embarrassment? Why would you do so? Why would you tell that story? Ma'am, everything about it is sad on your end. First of all, it gives bird energy. It very much gives like groupie that got flew out. You went with this man somewhere and he left you sitting there and you did not leave. Why did you call a Lyft girl and be like, you got me sitting in the car for 15, 20 minutes. I don't know where you're going. I'm going to go ahead and take myself home. It very much felt like you had no way to get to where you were going to go to. And I just would have never told this story. But either way, they find out it's Mika. And Dominique ends up winning the game. Again, I would have kept that in the vault forever. But some people feel like let it all out. I cannot agree. So as the game has ended, a lot of ladies are disappointed that Will 1.0, Will Jr., and Will Senior 2.0, aka hips and legs and hips and body. I know y'all was thinking the same thing. I can't imagine that was original in any capacity. I'm sure everybody was thinking that when we were watching this episode. But they're upset that Will Jr., Will Senior, and I forgot what other. Oh, DeMonte, who talks too much, did not know enough about them the way that LaRon and Dominique did. So they're back at the pool side because Tommy has reminded them, like, look, you need to really get to know these ladies because they have the ability to eliminate one of y'all tonight. So we can even out this situation. So you need to get on your job. So Ashley and William, the comic, sit down and start having conversation. Ashley says she really likes Will because he is tall and she thinks he's funny. However, she does not like that that he doesn't have facial hair. And she says that her dad told her not to trust anybody with no facial hair. She then proceeds to ask him more questions about what he's got going on. And they talk about kids. Now, Alexis doesn't have kids. I'm sorry, I kept calling her Ashley. There's no Ashley on the show. See how I make a move would just slip in anytime? And so Alexis says, okay, so he says, well, how do you feel about a man that has multiple, maybe one or two kids with two different women? And Alexis says, it really just depends on the situation because I don't have kids. And he was like, so what do you feel about maybe 3 boys with 2 baby mamas? Now, I'm going to say this, and this is why I think I'm going to like Alexis during this season. Even if I hate like her, I'm still going to like her because her response to this was beautifully wrapped. She said, you know what? I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. And I was jumping for joy because so often on these shows and in general conversation with a lot of the nonsense level conversation about dating, the base level, podcast level about conversation around dating, especially women with children, is that like that's too many kids. She got too many baby daddies. And I just love that she was in a position to pretty much throw that same energy back onto him because so often women get condemned when they have children if they're a single mom dating or if they have more than one child with somebody else. There's all this shame attached, and yet and still men can have 4, 5, 6 baby mamas, and they're joked with a little bit, but it's like, oh, as long as he can take care of them. And so it was one of those things when she said, I'm not going to be able to do it, it cracked me up completely. And, I agree with Alexis. That is a bit too much. Oh, but the shenanigans don't stop there. And what I would say, interesting, not twist of fate, but an interesting happening that clearly is going to blow up even more this season. My favorite number 2 in terms of mess starter, Crochet, is making her rounds, and we love to see it. So Crochet is talking with Will 1.0, who many people have started to not take serious because he's the youngest person and he is acting like it. Will is 31 and he's talking to Crochet about her experience being married because she's one of the people on here who has been married and divorced. And Crochet starts to explain that she got married in 2018 And when she got married, it was shortly thereafter she found out her husband actually had 4 kids. Now, this is the part of the conversation that I actually think was funny as hell. And I feel like Will was all of us on some level, but it was disrespectful in the way that he addressed her after the fact. But we were all kind of wondering, like, more follow up. So Will basically says, like, whoa, 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 let's run that back. You dated this man. Y'all had a relationship. He proposed. You said yes. Y'all got married. And then you found out he had 4 kids. He said, so did you ever know that he had 4 children? And she was like, no. And she was trying to go ahead and respond. But then he was like, so why did you miss that? And she felt so disrespected because he was just like, and you ain't know that nothing, no red flags, nothing. Like he was just going at her in a way, and it was kind of messed up. His response was horrible, but it was also funny at the same time. Like I said, however, he goes, "Whoa, whoa, I don't want you to be mad," because she said she felt disrespected by his response. He goes, "I don't want you to be mad because I think it's important that we still get to know each other and that we exchange this relationship. This, no, I'm sorry, we exchange this information." When I tell you men will always have, if nothing else, and not all men, the best type of men never have this, but the worst type of men will always have the audacity. Sir, she just said she felt disrespected and you cut her off in the middle to sort of blame her for not knowing about the ex. Although, and then proceed to ask her for her phone number and contact information so that you have numbers riled up for the end of the show. This is to me elimination level material. But he said, hey, we should exchange information so we can get to know each other better. And so I can continue to collect these numbers. Roche should have walked away right then and there. So we reconnect back on the bridge, and Mika and Dom connect. And, Dominique's been killing it with all the ladies so far today. And he mentions to Mika, like, he thinks she's beautiful. They have this conversation. He asks her about kids because, he's been trying to create an entire school system. And he lets her know that he is interested in having a student body as soon as possible. And she lets him know that she's not interested in having kids anymore. She has 2. She's not trying to have any more. They can have a pet or something. And she asked him about, like, how does he feel about sex before marriage? And this is a question that I never understand asking unless you are in fact celibate or you are thinking of being celibate. It just brings up sex for no reason in a conversation that doesn't need to happen, especially on the first time meeting someone. And so he answers and says, like, yes, but he meant to really articulate afterwards, in which he does, that he means, like, no, he believes in having sex before marriage. He goes, do you know anybody who waited? And then she pauses and goes, I don't know. Man, what was the point of this conversation? Why did you bring it up if you weren't celibate or thinking about it or thinking that that's the avenue that you're taking in your life spiritually? Like, why did you even bring it up? It just introduced sex for no reason. It was a nonsense question. And so we move on. And then we move on to April and DeMonte. April is sitting down with DeMonte. She has now gone to the fruit table for the 80th time today. Because, they had so many scenes where April was going and getting that fruit. I don't even know if they had actual real food for them. Was there any chicken, any rice? I don't know if they have a plate of food because they said that they taped there for hours. So I don't understand. But she's sitting down with DeMonte and, he's 41. He's a stylist and, she's a pharmacy tech. And so they're a little bit on the older side of things. And having, I would consider to be a positive conversation. Something that I did want to touch on from their conversation is DeMonte starts telling her about, life, that, being grown, you get to a certain point in life where you want to do different things. And he mentions to her about how he's currently working on his credit and, getting some things in his life in order because he lives in an apartment in the area. And April says, like, she's understanding in front of him, but on the green screen, she kind of just says that she feels at 41, you should be a certain place in your life and have certain things accomplished. And she doesn't know that would be something that she would be here for. Now, I want to say this because I think that sometimes the reality of life, we don't give enough grace to people in different spaces and places. Now, I'm not specifically talking about DeMonte completely. Her and Karen Fruit, I don't know where this situation is going to go. It looks like it absolutely went nowhere. But I will say that I get tired of the conversation that doesn't seem mature about money because I feel like people aren't having enough conversations about this in a real capacity and fashion. if you ever worked in finance, and probably some people, have or worked around financial situations, or if you've ever worked with people who are trying to get out of debt, you will find people from all walks of life in it, honey. And I'm not saying April should be with somebody who is broke and not doing anything for herself, or taking care of no man. I don't know what that looks like. I have never done that in my entire life, and I didn't grow up with a woman who did that, and I didn't grow up with a father who taught me to do that, or my siblings. But I will say that I feel like we don't have enough maturity around these conversations, because it feels like a lot of the rhetoric around it comes from like TikTok and the internet. And I found in my life, when I've talked to people, whether it be girlfriends or women I know, when I've worked around financial situations, there's a lot of people that be in debt in their 30s and 40s still, or who have to get their credit score back for tons of different reasons. People who are previously married, who divorced, and a person messed up the credit that they both had together. Somebody's taking care of family members, or a family member, and that's really been a difficult thing for them. We also even know people, personally, well, not we know people parasocially, like Michelle and Barack Obama. Michelle's often told the story about how they were in debt, significant school debt, because they both went to Ivy League institutions, and if Barack had not wrote the book, they wouldn't have been out of that debt had he not wrote two books that sold really well. We know Stacey Abrams' story about taking care of her parents, and that sort of pushing her into a place of not having the full financial freedom that she needed to have. And so even when she was running for this prestigious position in Georgia, she faced a little bit of an uphill battle, because you oftentimes have to have a good credit rating. So I hate that when we get to women, sometimes being in those situations, we're far more understanding. But when men are in those situations, we tend to lean a really negative light. I think you have to give more grace to people and see where they are in their life. Why are they in the financial situation? I'm not suggesting taking care of any man or paying his bills to get out of credit. I'm saying that find out where the person is and why they're there. I would have loved to hear more about why he actually was in debt. Is it a situation where, he's starting a fashion business? Did he go into debt for his business and now he's climbing out? Does he already have a plan? Is he already actively working? Has he paid off half the debt? You may not factor into that in any capacity, other than the person is being honest with you about a vulnerable story. And people are vulnerable when it comes to finances. And financial shame is a big problem in relationships. One of the reasons that people get divorced, one of the reasons they never make it. And it's also one of the reasons that people fail to expose people who have defrauded them, because they're afraid of how people will react to the situation. So I just want us to be a little bit better around the conversation when it comes to that, even in interpersonal and romantic relationships, because it is really killing us. Now, that being said, I feel like Roche was one of the people on the show that is and was the most like forgiving and understanding. It could be one of the reasons that's keeping her single too, but I feel like it was also open-heartedness. And I feel like she tried to understand Will 2.0 Hips when they were having their conversation, because he has a unconventional job. He's a comic. He also is in the reserve. So I'm assuming he knows that the comedy money alone won't be enough. But when she's trying to drill down as to what he wants to do in comedy, he starts to tell her that he wants to leave a legacy for his kids, and not just in the sense that he was an entertainer. He does want to be known. He does want to be, make it and be famous. And he was excited when he met Tommy at the beginning part, because Tommy's doing a little bit of the thing that he wants to do, and Tommy is in fact a comic. He then goes on to say that he has other legacies he wants to leave. So she says, okay, like what? Are you doing anything else? He said, I want to have several business ventures. She said, okay, what are the business ventures? He says, well, I want to open up a gun club for Black women, because I think it's important that, they know how to protect themselves or anything like that. So she says, that's kind of admirable. She said, so, are you working on that? Have you done anything? Well, he says, I have a friend who has a gun store. It's like, we try, and then y'all do this. So, and I was leaning in with Will for a minute, because I understood, like, okay, it's got to be hard for a person who's a comic to find a relationship, ultimately, because you work really late hours. You're normally out at night in the clubs. You have to work those clubs in order to get on and to be put on. You travel a lot. If you have been able to get out of your area, you travel to different cities in the middle of God knows where, and you work ungodly hours with a lot of drunk people. And the reality is that a lot of comics struggle for a very long period of time. And many of the ones that we know that are famous oftentimes went into acting, even though acting is not the most lucrative completely and initially either, but it really helps to pay the bills, because they're usually more acting jobs than they're and comedy gigs don't always play that much, especially early on. So it's helpful when you can do both. But normally you need to be in a major city to do that. So I am kind of wondering why he's still in Dallas Fort Worth, unless it's because his kids are there. And I'm assuming that's why he also does the reservist stuff so that he can have some type of benefits or whatever for the children. But either way, Roche is like, okay, let's move on. Tommy goes to collect the women and he asks the fellas to stay on the outside so he can talk to them about how they're feeling about the choices, because we have had enough conversation. It is late towards the end of the night. Tommy trying to get out of there because Glenn ain't never show up anyway. And they ready to go. So the men sit outside. Tommy goes inside with the women and he asks them who they are feeling. Most of the women echo that they like LaRon a little bit, and they all echo that they pretty much like Dominique. They think he's mature, he's on point. Some are concerned about the amount of kids he wants to have, including Mika, who says, she's not interested in having any more children, but he was the most mature in conversation, and they really appreciated that. Most of the women also like LaRon, except for the fact that, he gets party drunk sometimes. No, they didn't even mention LaRon. I'm sorry. They liked. Well, no, did they like anybody else? I feel like it was only Dominique. There might have been one other person that I feel like really hit the ladies, but as I'm thinking about it, I can't remember anybody that was really on point. I think Glenn had a chance and he didn't even show up. I can tell you who they didn't like. They didn't like Will 2.0. He was annoying. He's very immature and he was very thirsty to get people's numbers just to like collect things. They did not like Will 1.0, even though they cared for Hips and he was cool. Hips don't have a plan for his future too much, and that was questionable because a lot of women have kids. He has kids. It's like, where is this headed? While Tommy is talking to the ladies about their picks and their non-picks, the men are outside also having a conversation about the ladies. So Will Jr. is leading that conversation off, and he basically asked the men how they feel about the different women. Most of the men said that they like April, they like Alexis, that she's real cool. They also like Mika, Roche. And then he asked, well, who do y'all like from a visual perspective? Like who y'all feeling on the body? So they immediately all say Mika, and they immediately all say, I think, Roche as the visuals that they like body-wise. And he was like, yeah, that's what I was looking for. And it just goes to show the immaturity. Although it's no problem with them physically talking about the ladies. Clearly, like Mika has the video vixen kind of vibe, and they're into it. But we kind of get to see where their head is at as far as like some of the women are concerned. And we also get to realize why we continue to see Will as a child. We focus back on the room with Tommy and how they're not feeling some of the people. And it looks like Will 2.0, well, Will Sr. and DeMonte are coming up the most as the ones that women are just not feeling. They're not feeling the lack of maturity, or for some of them, the lack of finances. That could be an issue, and that's a concern. Tommy rolls back out to the front of the house. They go by the pool. They go into the elimination process, and Tommy says, 2 of you are not possibly ready to love. They roll up to the front. Tommy tells them why the women are not feeling them, and ultimately the women are not feeling them more than the other. I'm really pissed because even though Will 2.0 is not exactly the type, I hate that Will 1.0 is not going home. They ultimately say they feel like DeMonte and his suit are not ready to love, and they exit stage left. That is the end of the episode, y'all. It looks like this season's going to be very fiery. I don't know. I like it. I tell you one thing, ever since that Janelle and them situation, and really, I'll give it to Camille. Ever since Camille and them got into it in that room, it ain't never going to be different. They're going to always have a fight in that room because they know the ratings probably change when those happen. So when it was Camille versus everybody and Zadia versus everybody and Janelle versus what was her name? Tequila? It's never going to be the same after this, y'all. So just get used to always having problems between the ladies on this show in that room. And already we could see Roshia and Alexis may go head to head, and I am slightly here for it because Ready Love can get kind of boring. Let me know what y'all think of the episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.